Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today I'm going to be giving my in-depth review of 2020's Come Play. Now, before I start, I do want to let you know this is going to be a spoiler-filled review, so make sure you're going to check the movie out before you watch this review if you don't want to be spoiled. This was one of my top 10 horror films of 2020, so I strongly recommend you go and watch it anyway. Well, there's your spoiler warning. Come Play is about Oliver. He is a nonverbal autistic boy who uses a smartphone and iPads for communication. SpongeBob SquarePants is his comfort show, and I have to throw that in there because it's so cool to watch him get calmed down by SpongeBob, and all the different SpongeBob references throughout the movie I think are really good. They're very well placed. He attends school. He's in normal classrooms. He's not in a special ed room. He is in the general public with the gen ed kids, and I think it's really great that they did that. They did the general education with him, which is very important for autistic children to be a part of gen ed, so I love the fact that they included that in the film. He's mostly taken care of by his mother, Sarah. She's more of the worker. Let's do speech therapy together. Let's get our homework done. And then Marty's his dad. Marty's at work a lot, and Marty's also the one that's always play. Let's hug, let's have fun. This really affects Sarah because she thinks that Oliver hates her and loves Marty because Oliver won't even look her in the eye. And it's something that's bugged her and bothered her for a long time. It's all she wants is for Oliver to look her in the eyes. It's something very special to her. One night, Oliver sees an app on his iPad called Misunderstood Monsters, and narrating the story is a monster, Larry. And all Larry wants is to have a friend. Strange things begin to happen after Oliver reads the story. The lights start to go on and off by themselves. At one point, he's in his bedroom spinning with his iPad, playing with like a Snapchat, Instagram face filter, and a second face appears behind him. This is one of those ones where you knew it was coming, you've seen it coming, but it was still very effective. And it really, you've seen it in the trailer, but it was still so powerful to actually watch this scene take place in the movie with Oliver's excitement and then confusion when it actually goes down. At school, Oliver's bullied by some of his classmates. They lead him out to a field and they're picking on him. They're bullying him. They call him Moaner Boner because he does do some moaning and he does do a lot of fidgeting with his hands, but it helps to calm him down. That's when he's nervous or he's upset. That's what he does to calm himself down. They end up pushing him down and throwing his phone off just to bully him. This ends up coming back. Byron is one of the main bullies here. So they end up throwing the phone away into the field. We cut to Marty. He works as a parking attendant in a big parking lot for a big business building that's in the background. You don't really know what it is, but at one scene you see the lights flickering, and outside you see all these papers that are in the parking lot blowing around, and they end up landing on Larry in the background, getting his shape, but they disappear before Marty can turn around and see them. We jump to Sarah wants to organize a sleepover, Oliver's mom, because in speech therapy they talk about how he needs to have that communication with other kids. He needs to have that bonding with other kids. This is where we find out that Oliver and Byron used to be friends. But at a sleepover, Oliver had punched Byron in the face when he was having a meltdown, which caused them to not be friends anymore, is what we're told at this point. Well, when they're at the sleepover, the three boys that were bullying him in the field are the boys that come over for the sleepover. Byron ends up finding the tablet that Oliver had hid under the stairs. They start reading the story. The lights go out, and through the camera, they can see Larry in the kitchen. Larry attacks Byron when he walks out there to prove that Larry's not real. The boys' parents come and pick him up. They blame Oliver. They say it's his fault. He's a weirdo. He's a freak. In the following days, Sarah begins to see the same strange things that Oliver was and learns that Larry wants to take Oliver. He doesn't want to hurt Oliver. He wants to take Oliver. That night, Marty takes Oliver with him to his night shift at the job. Larry is a skeleton creature. This is where we really see Larry for the first time. He begins to stalk them. Oliver walks outside. He has a sticky hand that he plays with, and he's slapping it around, and he slaps it, and it hits Larry. Even though he's invisible, it sticks to Larry. That's when his dad, Marty, comes and picks him up and says, "Buddy, what are you doing? You can't be out here by yourself." When Marty witnesses Larry out there, he finally believes him because he sees Larry picking Oliver up off the ground. He turns around, takes him, and drives back. They break the tablet, and they assume that everything's over at this point. But we know this isn't true because we can see the flickering still on the iPad, so we know this is not over yet. We learn that Byron is traumatized. He hasn't talked since the incident at Oliver's house. When Sarah and Oliver go over to see Byron and his mom, Byron finally comes clean. He says that Oliver had nothing to do with it. It was all Larry. When they were in the kitchen, he could feel Larry's hands around his neck, and he knew that Larry wanted to kill him. So now Sarah's really starting to believe, not only because she's seeing it, but other people are seeing it too. The next day when they're at school, Byron goes and sits with Oliver, and they're watching SpongeBob together. And Byron asks Oliver why he didn't want to be his friend anymore. Well, here's where we find out when they had the sleepover and Oliver had punched Byron. Sarah had called Byron's mom and said that Oliver didn't want to be his friend anymore, which was not the truth, and this really hurts Oliver. He says that's a lie. He never wanted to stop being his friend. So here we learn that Byron wasn't bullying Oliver because he was different. He was bullying Oliver because he was hurt, because he thought that Oliver didn't want to be his friend anymore, and that hurt his feelings. So this really does kind of wrap up the story with those two a little bit. We learn that they are still friends, and now Oliver's a little happier, but he's still heartbroken at his mom now. Well, we cut to that night, and Marty's at work at the parking garage, and we see that he actually sees Larry now. He gets there through the screens. Marty gets away, but as he's driving, he has his phone out, and he goes to the passenger seat, and he sees Larry there. Larry jumps at him, which causes Marty to wreck the truck. Marty is hurt bad. He's in the hospital, but he's still okay. He's alive. Larry proceeds to attack Oliver at his house through all the technology, but he can just... At this point, something that really broke my heart, Sarah's freaking out, obviously. She just learned that Marty's been in an accident, and all this stuff's happening with Larry, and she looks at Oliver and says, "Can't you just be normal for 1 second?" And it's such a heartbreaking scene. I get she's frustrated, but that's the last thing you ever would want to say to a child like Oliver. She then decides she just trashes all the electrical stuff in the house, but the TV comes on, and it finishes Larry's story before she can get it to shut off. This causes Larry to be able to take physical form, and he's stalking them all throughout the house, and they're trying to hide from him. This is where you see how big and scary Larry really is. Scary Larry, I like that. But one of the better jump scares happens here. They go upstairs and they're hiding under the bed, and Oliver's freaking out and he's fidgeting, and Sarah starts humming the SpongeBob SquarePants theme song to him in his ear, which helps him to calm down so that way they can be quiet. Oliver writes on a paper and asks why she lied to Byron's mom about not wanting to be friends anymore. Sarah says it's her fault. It wasn't Oliver. She didn't do it for Oliver. She did it for her, so she didn't look as bad. This is when Oliver says he's going to go with Larry. She lied, so he's going to go with Larry. And she finally talks him out of it. And this is where Oliver says his first word, which is such an emotional scene, to watch Oliver finally come out and say field. He hasn't been able to talk yet, but to watch him say field over and over again is such a powerful moment for me.
Field, 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 field.
After that awesome jump scare, they get up and Oliver starts smashing everything in the room with a baseball bat. He's breaking the lights, breaking anything that has electricity, because that's how Larry can get to him. Oliver grabs Sarah's hand and he takes her out to the field. That's why he was saying field. And she starts getting happy knowing, you brought me out here, there's no electricity, so there's no way for Larry to get to us. Well, they forget that the phone was thrown out there. So Larry comes out through the phone and he takes Oliver and he starts dragging him and he holds out his hand, because in order for Oliver to go with him, he has to take Larry's hand. So Oliver goes with him to grab his hand when all of a sudden Sarah's hand comes and grabs his hand, and she tells Larry, we want the same thing. We want Oliver to be safe. I'll be your friend. I'll go with you so we can leave Oliver here. In her final moments, Oliver finally looks Sarah in the eye, which is a scene that is so impactful. You can see the pure joy on Sarah's face before she dies. Larry takes Sarah and they both vanish, leaving Oliver alone. In the aftermath, Oliver now lives with Marty, who is on a cane after the accident. Marty is more involved now, going to speech therapy, working with his speech, talking about how powerful Sarah was and how great and perfect she was, and he should have realized that before. One night, the lights go out and strange noises are heard downstairs. We see Oliver spinning in circles in the living room by himself, and then he's lifted up in the air. Marty, obviously terrified, pulls his phone out to see Larry, but it's not Larry, it's Sarah. And she's taken the place of Larry, and they're playing happily. And Sarah tells her son, I'll protect you. as Marty smiles and cries in happiness to end the film. So a very sad ending with it's the happiest sad ending I've ever seen. In her final moments here, Sarah finally got Oliver to look her in the eye, and now she is here to protect Oliver. She says, I'll protect you. She's going to look over him. So what was your guys' opinions on the film? I personally, if we're ranking it on 0 to 5, I'd give this a 4. There are some slow moments. There are some things that I think could have been better with character development. But I think it's a great film. I think it's a heartfelt film. I think it's scary. I think there are funny moments in it. I think that there's a lot of levity to it. So I personally would rank this probably maybe a 3.5 to 4 out of 5. I did enjoy it a lot. Leave your comments down here. Make sure if you haven't, hit that subscribe button so you can get more content just like this. Until next time, guys, I'm Ken Sledge. Keep talking horror. Stay what you are. And we'll see you guys soon.
I'll protect